Thank you. I want to go ahead and get started because we have some really amazing people up here, and I want to give them a chance to talk to us as much as possible and leave plenty of time for questions at the end. Welcome to the Trade Union and Democracy from Below panel. My name is Jenna Checkley. I'm moderating today. I'm coming to you from the Solidarity Center here in Washington, D.C. Prior to being with the Solidarity Center, which is an international labor organization, I clerked for the United Steelworkers in Pittsburgh, which is an international trade union. And before I was in law school, I spent some time living and working in Uganda for a couple of years.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Living and working in.
Is this work? Can you hear me?
Closer.
Closer, okay. We're just going to do that. And anyway, before we begin, I do just want to acknowledge that there are some people joining us today who came from very, very far away to be here. The Solidarity Center, in collaboration with our sister organization, the AFL-CIO, has brought several trade unionists over from Africa, including 2 members of our panel today, and they've just arrived in DC as of Saturday night to join us and share their experiences with us. So I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for being here and for coming so far to be a part of this with us. We're very honored. I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves in turn. I will introduce you and then I'll ask you a question. Please take about just 5 minutes. I will time you to answer each question. And then I really do want this to be something of a conversation. So we'll ask a few general questions to the panel. There will be a conversation and a dialogue, and at the end we'll have about half an hour for question and answer. I'm going to start with Aretha. Aretha is coming to us from Liberia. Aretha, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then can you tell us what sparked your involvement in the trade union movement?
Thank you, Janet. I am Aretha Tano. I come from Liberia, and I'm the Vice President of the United Workers Union of Liberia, the fastest growing union in Liberia ever in Liberia's history. And I am also the lead organizer of the Domestic Workers Union in Liberia, which is for its first time ever in the history of Liberia. And what sparked my interest is I entered the forest sector in 1999 when forestry workers were being intimidated, harassed, and abused. They were being beaten where staffs even died. And so everyone got afraid, nobody to take the lead because of fear of being harassed, being intimidated, and abused. And I took the lead to engage management, and I was able to reorganize the union, had elections, and I served as president for the Forestry Development Authority Workers Union for 11 years, up to 2013 when management declared me confidential staff that I could not head the union any further. And I also worked as domestic workers union in Liberia for 4 years. So coming from that background and knowing what it meant to be a domestic worker in Liberia, I then got challenged. After a series of trainings at the United Steelworkers Union, the Solidarity Center, and other civil society organizations, I saw a fit to organize the Domestic Workers Union, which is a predominantly female union. And so I thought that it was very necessary to organize the union. And since we organized the union for the past 3 years, and it is growing. And this is a union that is not covered under our labor law. Under the Liberia labor law, informal sector is not mentioned, it's not covered. So there are mere hires and casual labors. So that actually sparked my interest to organize the union, and then became an activist and still standing up for that.
Thank you so much. Joining us also is Abel, also from Liberia. Abel, would you also share with us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the union?
Thank you very much, sister. My name is Abel Elf Ningi. The Elf is for father. I work with the Firestone rubber company in Liberia Firestone Christian, the whole company in Liberia. Briefly, because of the time, I got my employment with this company 2000, after I had worked for 5 years as a contractor. Then within that time, we had a heated argument at the work site where unions, workers' voices were not heard. We decided that we should put our feet on the ground for workers' voices to be heard. Sitting here, I've been in jail twice for advocating for workers. The workers are there. And we are here today to tell you the story about Liberia. Be patient with us. We are saying thanks and appreciation to the organizers of this program for us to come over here and tell you how we are living across the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you.
Okay, next is Nancy Parker. Nancy is joining us from the United Steelworkers, which is an international union. Nancy, could you tell us a little bit about your work for the United Steelworkers and what brought you to the labor movement? And then could you also share with us your experience as part of an international union and especially your work in Liberia?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being awake. My name is Nancy Parker. I work for the Steelworkers International Union. I've been there almost 3 years now, and I'm in the legal department, so I'm an assistant general counsel. I went to law school with a social justice initiative framework, with a civil rights mentality, with a passion to do good for all people, and just a altruistic motive all around. But law school is a place where that type of idea, that type of thought process can get lost throughout your 3 years, and you may, if you're not careful, either come out jaded or come out a little bit misdirected from where you started. But fortunately, I was able to stay on track and end up with the Steelworkers, which is the largest industrial union in North America. We have local unions all over the country, in Canada, which Canada has better labor laws than here in the States, and also in Puerto Rico, and so we're all over. And just specifically, I am in the legal department, so I deal with issues once our folks on the ground have done the hard work to organize the people at the different locations. We have another group of folks who come in and make sure we can get a collective bargaining agreement, a CBA, which outlines the terms and conditions of employment. And then I come in towards the end, or really the critical component is making sure we can enforce these rights that we have now just procured for our employees. And so the legal department is very vital in actually making sure the contract is carried through. A lot of my job entails dealing with management and other management attorneys on interpretation of the contract, or again, making sure our folks are receiving the benefits that they have worked so hard to get, which we've negotiated to get. So in the legal department, my work clearly is very legal, but I also have to deal directly with local members, because they have to call me and explain to me what the issue is, what happened on the ground, where we feel our rights were trampled. And then I step in and do what I can within the law, using the law to our advantage, which most of the time is very hard. U.S. Doesn't have a lot of employee-friendly laws. Everything is more management-friendly. And you can see that if you just look at our Supreme Court, just the decisions that we've been getting, everything is very management-focused. But again, it's still in the background is my passion for equal justice and for change. So in this legal role, I take that passion to help folks and use it to make sure that they're actually getting the rights that they deserve, which is not just a labor right, but it's a human right. I think that is that's a point that gets lost a lot of times. folks don't want to deal with labor, or even if you want to go civil rights, folks don't want to deal with civil rights. They think these are separate, isolated rights that somebody is trying to get, when in actuality what we're talking about is human rights. These are basic rights. Labor rights is civil rights is human rights. So we're not just talking about something that either affects one color of people, black folks, or something that affects one sector of workers, low-income workers. We're talking about rights that should be important to everyone. So again, I work for a great union. So in this role, I also had the opportunity to meet Brother Abel and Sister Aretha in Liberia last December. I went over, and me and another colleague from the steelworkers, we went to Monrovia, and we also actually visited a couple other cities in Liberia. But we put on a workshop to, you know, give our brothers and sisters the tools that they need to stand up against these employers. Just the same tools and same workshop that we do with our brothers and sisters all over the United States. We take that same program and we held workshops and, you know, to pass it along to our brothers and sisters. And specifically, Abel works for Firestone. And there's a connection there. You can see the global issues when we're talking about one problem here affects the whole world. Well, Abel is a rubber worker in Liberia. What happens when Abel and his folks get that rubber and they don't have gloves and they don't have boots and they tap the trees and they get that rubber, they get the latex? What happens to it next, right? It doesn't just disappear. Somebody's shipping that to Tennessee or shipping that to Ohio, where our steel workers, our brothers and sisters, take that latex that Brother Abel tapped from the tree, that formed it into rubber. We take it in our plants and we make tires. And you guys go out to Ford and GM and you buy your car and you have foul, gobble hands on it, you have steel workers' hands on it. You're riding on the backs of those who have labored so that you can drive in the streets. So we really, truly are all connected. And that's probably enough for right now. Thank you.
An umbrella. We're very excited to be joined today by such a great member of our community, Bill. If you could just share a little bit about yourself and some of your remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So my name is Bill Fletcher. My day job is with the American Federation of Government Employees, which is the largest of the federal sector unions in the United States. I work for National Vice President Augusta Thomas, and our area of responsibility is equity issues, issues facing women, facing people of color, facing groups that have been historically discriminated against. Beyond that, I do a fair amount of media work now and a good deal of writing. Did you want me to lay out this other? So I in preparation for this, I wanted to just, I wrote down some notes in terms of looking at the framework. Before we got started, my friend Prexy Nesbitt and I greeted each other. We commented on the craziness of the period that we're in. And I said, yes, and there have been other periods that have been actually crazier. But that doesn't suffice for an analysis. And when we're looking at the situations facing unions, not in all parts of the world, I think it's important that we keep a few things in mind. Part of what makes the nature of this period so unstable is that we're looking at the coming together of three major crises. And this is essentially the equivalent socially of tectonic plates that are coming together. So you have a crisis of the economy or a crisis of the environment that calls into question the survivability of humanity. And you have the crisis of the legitimacy of the state. And these three things are operating together. And the economic piece is rooted in the development of neoliberal globalization. And part of, in the interest of time, I'm not going to lay out the entirety of what I was going to say, but just to make this point, that the bulk of the trade union movement globally has refused to accept that the dominant forces of global capitalism have absolutely no interest in a partnership with labor. None. Zero. That the partnerships that existed in the past